What's good, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Hope you guys have enjoyed the weekend. Um, I have, except for my sports teams, as usual. If you've been following this podcast at all, you know that I am a Jets and a Knicks fan, and it is a sickness. It is indeed a sickness. I can't shake it, can't get rid of it. There is no medicine for it. Um, Welcome. Please subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. We are streaming live on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. So, with all that, I want to get to a story that I saw today on, let's just say I saw it on the internet, saw on one of the social media platforms, and I am by no means an ambulance chaser. I mean, there's enough stuff out there about law enforcement doing things that are below board that if I wanted to be an ambulance chaser and just create content around that, I would be sitting at my computer 24/7. I don't do that. I don't have any interest in doing that, but every once in a while I'll come across a story that makes me feel a certain way. And this did. Let me see who's tapping in here. So let me share with you what's happening in Broward County, Florida. Like, just straight up, is there ever any positive news that comes out of the state of Florida? I mean, the state seems to be just an embarrassment to the union. I'm just keeping it real. It is a wild state. And this story, to me, when it comes to law enforcement, it is as bizarre as it gets. So let me read this to you. For 3 years, the Broward County Sheriff's Office produced its own crack cocaine so it could sell it to people that deputies would then arrest for buying the crack cocaine. They refer to this as a reverse sting operation. And it was a practice that the Florida State Supreme Court repeatedly described. Repeatedly? What does that mean? Repeatedly. Like you've done it more than once. The Florida State Supreme Court repeatedly described as outrageous in its 1993 ruling that such reverse stings violated an individual's right to due process. More than 30 years later, though, a routine audit of documents found hundreds of those arrests and convictions are still on the books and part of people's criminal records. On Friday, meaning 2 days ago, the state attorney for Broward County, Harold Pryor, announced his office plan to do something about that, declaring it's never too late to do the right thing. I want to outline for you what they believe the right thing to be is. This is from Broward County State Attorney. These records may be a dim memory or an unfortunate part of history to many, but they have had a long-lasting and severe impact on the lives of the people who were arrested, as well as their families and the wider community, Pryor added. The state attorney's office explained that despite the Supreme Court's decision back in 1993, many of the cases were never vacated. It means they weren't thrown out. That means they could still weigh on the lives of those prosecuted under the unconstitutional program, affecting their ability to get a job, find a home, or appearing in criminal history checks. Anyone, this is the call to action that they are doing in Florida. Anyone who thinks they may be affected by the effort is asked to reach out to the state attorney's office. According to the numbers cited in the statement, some estimates have placed the number of cases involved may be as high as 2,600 cases. That's a lot of drug dealing that the sheriff's department was doing. I'm going to keep reading this. The current Broward County Sheriff, Gregory Toney, was made aware of the plan to vacate or remove the judgments and sentences for those who were arrested and convicted as part of those reverse stings and supports the plan, according to Pryor's office. The current sheriff says these matters were well before our tenures. However, I'm of the opinion that the state has an ethical duty and an obligation to correct this injustice before destruction of old records is initiated. They were about to destroy these records. And that means if they destroyed the records, the people who were convicted for buying cocaine from sheriff deputies, and it was cocaine that was produced and manufactured by the sheriff's department. That's still on the record, even though the Florida State Supreme Court deemed that as unconstitutional. Let me keep reading. I get distracted by my own thoughts. These matters were well before our tenures. However, I am of the opinion that the state has an ethical duty and obligation to correct this injustice before destruction of old records is initiated. Pryor wrote in a letter to Toney on Thursday explaining his office's intentions. Many of the records discovered during the audit were still on hand, even though they were past the statutory requirement to be retained. Why do you still have it? Some of them were slated for possible destruction. Again, if they're destroyed, there's no record of it. And if you were convicted for buying cocaine from the sheriff's department, it's going to stay on your record forever. I just read this entire article to you. And what is a trip to me is nowhere in this article does it state that the state thinks the right thing to do, the ethical thing to do, is to investigate the people who were in charge at the time as members of government. That's the DA's office, who convicted these people, and the sheriff's department, who produced and manufactured the crack cocaine, and then the deputies that sold it. There's not one word in this article about holding people accountable for those actions. Not one word. They only think they only believe the right thing to do is to reach out to have people who've been affected by this unconstitutional practice, to reach out to them so they can vacate your conviction and wipe your record clean. That's it. And then people in law enforcement wonder why there is no trust. There's no trust because there's no accountability. And it's not just law enforcement. It's not just law enforcement. It's the judicial system. The district attorney, all the district attorneys that were in elected office during the time that this practice was taking place, and every single sheriff who was head of that agency, and the deputies whose names were on those arrest documents, they should be held accountable. And you talk about statute of limitations. Some things shouldn't fall within a statute of limitations. Think about what I'm saying. There are certain crimes where there is no statute of limitation. Let me tell you what they are. Let me tell you what they are. Let's go over this. Okay, so some crimes do not have a statute of limitations, including crimes punishable by death or life sentence, such as first-degree murder and treason. There is no statute of limitation for first-degree murder or treason. There is no statute of limitation for sex crimes against minors. Many states do not have a statute of limitation for violent crimes. In some states, crimes that involve public funds do not have a statute of limitations. Felony rape offenses involving force or violence do not have a statute of limitations. Embezzlement of public money does not have a statute of limitations. Spousal rape does not have a statute of limitations. Aggravated sexual assault of a child does not have a statute of limitations until the victim turns 40. I am of the opinion that lying on a police report that results in the conviction and jail sentence of someone should not have a statute of limitations. And call me crazy, but a sheriff's department that was producing and manufacturing crack and selling the crack to residents that they were sworn to serve and protect, and then arrest those residents for buying the crack that you manufactured, shouldn't have a statute of limitations. We should be able to go back, and it wouldn't be hard. We should be able to go back and get all the names of the people that were involved, all of that, and hold them responsible for their actions. Now, I just posted on social media today what a chief of police said to me, well, not just to me, to our entire Game Changer group several years ago. And he believed that any member of law enforcement that was caught lying on a police report that resulted in the imprisonment of someone should have to spend double the amount of time in prison that the person that they imprisoned spent. And I agree with that. Law enforcement is supposed to be held to a higher standard. So if you lie and your lie sends someone to prison, you should spend double the amount of time that they had to serve in prison based on your lie. And in this case of the Supreme Court deeming this reverse sting operation that the Broward County Sheriff was engaged in of manufacturing crack cocaine, having their deputies go undercover to sell the crack cocaine. Then you know what? Let me take that back. There's nothing here about undercover. There's nothing here about undercover. What penalty do you think that the people involved in this scheme should serve? What penalty do you think that they should suffer? They ruined a lot of people's lives. And they preyed on people's addictions. And they sent people to prison. You know what? I'm going to keep it real. I would like to know the demographics of the people that they entrapped. That's what I would like to know. I would like to know what those people look like. You know why I want to know? Because I live in the United States of America. And we've seen this story before. Over and over and over again. That's what I would like to know. So I just wanted to do a quick live stream to talk about this particular injustice that took place in Broward County, Florida. It's not made up. You can Google it. I was amazed. I was moved by it, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get this off my chest, how I felt about it. I don't believe that the right thing is only vacating the sentences of people who were entrapped by the sheriff's department. I believe that this should be a special circumstance where the state of Florida opens the books, looks at the names on all of those convictions, and holds those people accountable. They should have held them accountable back in the 90s when it was happening. And this is part of my problem with the system. There's a lack of accountability. You either get slapped on the wrist for something egregious, you either get slapped on the wrist for committing a crime, or you don't get slapped on the wrist at all. And in this particular case in the state of Florida in Broward County, everybody who was involved in this crack cocaine scheme is getting off scot-free. There'll be no investigation. They will cite a statute of limitations. Where if they really wanted to do the right thing, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to reopen an investigation into that. 2,600 people. They're saying up to 2,600 people are walking around with convictions, with felony convictions on their records as a result of something illegal the Broward County Sheriff's Department was doing. I want to know what people think of that. I would love to know what people think of that. It's crazy. I see somebody is in the Cops and Convicts YouTube channel. What do you think of this story? It's a wild story. It's a wild story. What do you think of it? It reminds me kind of what's taking place in our federal government right now, where government continues to protect government. And in this particular case that I'm talking about the Matt Gaetz investigation into statutory rape, sex trafficking, so on and so forth. You have a report. If there was nothing in that report, no one in Congress would be fighting to keep it from seeing the light of day. There's obviously something in that report. There's obviously multiple things in that report that do not vindicate or absolve Matt Gaetz from any wrongdoing. Otherwise, we'd see it. My question is, why are we allowing the government to get away with stuff like that? Why are we allowing that? Why aren't we more why aren't we more united to keep things like that from happening? Because if we were, things like what took place in Broward County or what's taking place in Broward County, it wouldn't occur. It wouldn't occur at all. But we are too divided. We're too separated. We're too much at each other's throats, rooted in tribalism and what our parents have taught us about how we should feel and how we should act without knowing any of the issues. Like, you stick to your group, son, regardless. That's what is really making life difficult in this country in terms of us being referred to as the United States of America. Right now, I feel like we have spent too long being the connected states of America, not united. So what are your thoughts on that? I see somebody who's tapped in on the YouTube channel. I don't see you in the chat. I can't see who you are. I don't know if you're a regular, but I like to know how you feel about this particular story coming out of Florida and my thoughts on it. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Let me say hello to you in the chat. If you're with me, say hello and ask me any questions that you might have. All right. Well, this is going to be a quick live stream, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm hoping that as I continue to do this, there'll be more people interested in becoming a part of this community. I know that you have thoughts on a number of different issues, and I want to talk to you about them. I want to listen to you. I want to hear from you. I appreciate whoever tapped in. I appreciate you for tapping in. And until next time, you are tapped into the Cops and Convicts podcast with Sean Shepard, and I appreciate your time. I will catch you next time. Peace.